Good morning to all, to Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez, to our NEDA Head Secretary Pernia, Chairman Reyes Espinosa, of course to Miguel Belmonte here, to our honored guests, and of course, ladies and gentlemen. Well, today can be a momentous day for our country. By the time this event ends, we hope to walk out of this beautiful new hotel into the air of a vindicated and stronger nation. News from the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague is expected today, and hopefully a decision against China for her intrusions into our national territory. We must believe that history will be on our side today. When Manny Pacquiao lost to Mayweather last year, the then Miss Philippines, Pia Wurtzbach, tweeted, "Bawi tayo sa Miss Universe." And she did, right? So we take inspiration from her chutzpah. Talo man tayo sa China sa FIBA, bawi tayo mamaya sa arbitration. Now, speaking of FIBA, about a week ago, we hosted the Olympic qualifying tournament for the Rio Olympics. Despite the spirited effort of 12 valiant men, we failed to break the glass ceiling. One blogger wrote, "Sayang, almost, halos, muntik." Pwede rin lintik, di ba? But it occurred to me as I watched President Duterte toss the ceremonial ball to the cheers of 20,000 fans, how basketball can be a unifying force. The sublime pride one felt watching Filipinos compete against the best of the world is simply indescribable. I hope there could be more. But just look what basketball has opened. Ramona and I are now business partners, right? Now, if I could only get Gina Lopez to be interested in basketball. We support many teams, as you know, but I was asked once which of our teams I love the most. And I replied, Ateneo, of course, is my intellectual love. Talk and Text, my professional love. Gilas Pilipinas, my patriotic love. San Beda, my emotional and now politically correct love. And I support the UP Maroons too. They say it's my love for the poor. Apologies to UP. While getting serious, my task today is to start the thought process for this forum. That's the role of a keynote speaker. I'd like to think first that much of the interest in this event must be inspired simply by the times. Not only is this arbitration day, but we also have a new government with new hopes. President Duterte, in less than a month, has given us a reassuring view of a viable economic program, no doubt held by Secretary Dominguez here, driven by decisive leadership and a clear bias for action. So change has come and we welcome it. We wish President Duterte and Vice President Robredo, or shall we say our Dubredo nation, well. But more than that, business should support and collaborate with them in nation building as we chart our way to progress to 2020. Now, the first executive order of the President charged Cabinet Secretary June Vasco with supervision over 12 government agencies to find better ways to reduce the incidence and magnitude of poverty in this country. Apart from drugs and criminality as the enemy, this government has named poverty as a target as well. So my second thought today touches on poverty and starts with this premise. Business is a partner to government in nation building. Progress is best achieved when the public and private sectors appreciate each other's mandate and work together in fulfilling the one and same purpose, improvement of our people's welfare, what Michael Porter calls the shared value. We all know there's poverty standing in the way. So addressing it must be the business of business, not only of governments. The optimum approach to poverty, in our view, is jobs. Not just the quantum of jobs created, but jobs that lift families from the bottom of the pyramid. My third and longest point today references the many soft parts of our economy begging to be addressed. The good news is that these gaping deficits represent investment opportunities for business and investors, both local and domestic and foreign. Since most of these opportunities are job creating and situated in rural areas, they would help, I think, in promoting the elusive inclusive growth we want to achieve. So what are these opportunities in our view? First, businesses unique to their geographic and resource advantages, such as tourism and mining. Most of these are located in rural areas where poverty incidence is the highest. At around 40%, this is higher than the national average of 26%. Second, businesses linked to information and communications technology, to science and engineering, where I think this country is rather weak. The world has already entered the fourth industrial revolution, which is the new digital economy, deploying and placing a premium on intellectual capital. We all know markets now value digital enterprises more than the smokestacks and steel and iron of yesteryears. It is also a world of disruption, tying in one of the themes of this forum. So let me illustrate briefly how technology has started to work to make inroads in one of the more conservative sectors of our economy, which is the financial industry. We now have a digital platform to effect remittances, domestic remittances, to be clear, done more cheaply and more efficiently. Our Smart Padala already handles about 100 billion of the 300 billion pesos domestic remittances yearly. Smart e-money has disbursed over 5.2 billion pesos worth of government's conditional cash transfers to 1.5 million impoverished families online nationwide. And our mobile loan saver with Land Bank as our financial enabler has for the last 12 months disbursed close to 10 billion pesos of sarili loans online to more than 65,000 government employees. Our next step, our next goal is to apply this solution to private sector employees. We have as well, finally, a platform for consumer loans called Lender. These solutions can disrupt the industry dynamics of financial institutions by enabling anytime, anywhere convenience for consumers of financial products. They can, in fact, level the playing field, so neither size nor bricks and mortars will matter in the long run for banks. And since it reaches a majority of our people, they can help in financial inclusion as well. Close to my last point, the list of infrastructure issues is long and they're very close to our heart. In power, we badly need, I think in the first instance, a national policy on fuel mix for our generation plants, apportioning what comes from coal, gas, and renewables. This fuel allocation will impact both the cost of power to our people and our environment in the long run. The recent heightened interest in renewables is understandable, but let me just say this. For now, renewables cost more than conventional power, which means higher power prices. There's a cost to protecting our environment. We must remember that. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. On the supply side, power supplies nationally is not so much a cause for concern based on power plants being built and to be built. We're likely to have sufficient generating capacity over the medium term. But majority of these plants being built are coal-based. So if you oppose the coal policy, we could have an issue on supply. In tollways, the main deterrent has been the lack of relief in rate adjustments for the last 3 years, despite a parametric formula embedded in concession agreements allowing such periodic adjustments. These rate adjustments are necessary to fund the capex for additional toll roads which must be built. Of course, in water, we need government to honor contracts, and government's refusal to implement the arbitral award, which we won, and grant the relevant tariff increase have held back the build-out more pipes to more people and the construction, more importantly, of sewage treatment plants. So important to ameliorate the discharge of pollutants into our waterways. So now I ask, where are the environmentalists who should take up this cause? Where are they? Now, all over the country, there are issues with power supply in respect of the distribution companies all over the country, and of course, the water supply all over the country, as well as for Metro Manila. We only have one significant source of power for Metro Manila. If something happens to Angat, we simply will have no water. We've always advocated for so many years a more varied and smaller water supply distribution points until the country is able to build a significant dam, maybe of the same size as Angat, but it will take us so many years to plan and to build. So the list goes on: light rails to fix and expand, subways to be built later, heavy rails in Luzon and Mindanao, airports, regional and international, and of course the ultimate dream, bridges which will connect Luzon to Mindanao. Next, agriculture. Despite the critical place of agriculture in our economy, our attitude and laws on agricultural development are simply not investor-friendly to both local investors and foreign investors. We need to rethink the agrarian reform law, which has not worked for more than 50 years. And I don't know why we keep renewing a law that doesn't work. We must support large-scale commercial farms. And people investing in those farms do not want to buy the land. They just simply want to lease them. They don't want to put the money in the land. They want to put the money in the plantations. Just look at the example and success of plantations in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. We've already invested in agriculture, but more on the manufacturing side of it. But as we get familiar with the business, the main issue is not really on the milling side, although our plants are small and old, but more on the plantation side. The production metrics of our sugar and coconut plantations, to name just a few, compare unfavorably with the yield and production value of plantations in Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia. We have to do something with our plantations because they impact on the mill efficiency as well. Now, it might interest you to know, because you are paying for it, the local international prices are almost twice as international prices for sugar. I think in the long run, that pricing scheme is untenable. Similarly, the price of local copra and coconuts is higher than the imported price of coconuts and copra coming from Vanuatu, Sulawesi, and Papua New Guinea. I think that is unacceptable for this country. Finally, the gorilla, so to speak, in the basketball court. Mining, my favorite subject. Let me just make two brief points. I hope media is not here. Yeah? My first point is simply this. Even if you operate on the premise that all mining are bad, our need for mining products as a people will not stop. We will import the metals and minerals we refuse to mine as a national policy. What will happen? We would then be paying the Indonesians, the Malaysians, the Australians, the Canadians, the South Africans, everybody else for their riches. We'd be paying not only the profit, but also the cost of protecting their environment. This makes no sense at all to me. Paying somebody else to do the job we ourselves can and should do. Now, my second point deals with natural resources. Providence has endowed this country with an abundance of natural resources, including mineral resources. We can, of course, choose to develop them to benefit our people or let them just lie fallow. I say we all have a sacred responsibility to our people to improve their welfare. The poetry of blue skies and tangerine sunsets should give way to the stark realities of poverty. I'd like to think, have you guys visited Baseco and the squatters in Mandaluyong? I'd like to think that what matters to them every day is food on the table, shirts on their back, education for their children, roof over their heads. I'm not sure they worry about whether the sky is clear, or whether the water is pure as we speak. And if we do develop these resources, we would have lived by these words of Matthew in his parable of the talents. And I quote, "Well done, good and trustworthy servant. I will set you over much, and now enter into the joy of your master." So I'd like to close now by telling you the story of Marlon Baro of Cagayan de Oro. Sounds like Marlboro, right? Marlon's parents separated when he was only 2 months old. He was adopted by his childless uncle and aunt. His foster father is a carpenter. So typical Filipino life, after high school, Marlon was forced to work in order to feed his family. And at 15 years old, he received his first pay, 160 pesos a day, as a laborer carrying heavy loads of cement, sand, and gravel. In 2010, he took and passed the PMA entrance exam, but failed the medicals twice due to his scoliosis. In 2012, Marlon was accepted as a janitor in Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, collecting garbage in the school complex. But he was encouraged to take the entrance exam and passed. But it was tough for him, attending classes from 7:30 in the morning until noon, and doing his janitorial work from 1 to 10 p.m. But with the help of a scholarship from our Gabay Guro Foundation, he managed finally to graduate with a degree in education. So Marlon will soon be a teacher at the Lumad community in Lantapan, Bukidnon. Marlon's inspiring narrative is one of many millions of examples of Filipino life, but it does bring to mind what Prime Minister Nehru said in August of 1947 on the eve of Indian independence, and soon after the assassination of his mentor, Mahatma Gandhi. And I quote, this is what he said: "The achievement we celebrate today is but a step, an opening of opportunity to the greater triumphs and achievements that await us. The service of India, the service of the Philippines, means the service of the millions who suffer. It means ending poverty and ignorance and disease and inequality of opportunity. The ambition of the greatest man of our generation," referring to Gandhi, "has been to wipe every tear from every eye. That may be beyond us, but as long as there are tears and suffering, our work will not be over. While our work in this country is indeed far from over, may everyone in this hall resolve to wipe every tear in every eye of every Filipino." Thank you for listening, and a good day to all.